So this is my full review of the brand new LG C2 OLED TV for 2022. Well, it is sort of. Don't forget to hit the red button to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up and click the notification bell to get my next video first. Now this is my full review of the LG C2, and normally that would really be about it, but this year is very different because this is the 48-inch C2, and this is going to be very different from a lot of the other C2s. It is similar in some ways to the 42-inch, although I think the 42-inch will end up being more popular, and I'll come on to some of the reasons for that later. But I really do think that if you are considering buying an LG C2 this year, then this particular model is the one that you really need to think about. You need to really be sure before you part with your hard-earned cash. You may well have seen my unboxing and setup video. However, you could have been watching last year's because it was almost identical. I've also done a side-by-side video with the C1. I'll link both of these videos in the description. And again, the differences were minimal. Even when we look at some of the physical differences between this 48-inch version, it has the same stand, it's got the same bezels, it's got the same incredible thinness to the top part of the machine, and same similar fatter bottom. And I do have to say, I'm a little bit confused. I think that LG have almost been a little bit lazy with this design, because I would have liked to have seen the new central stand that you're going to see on the 55 and the 65-inch versions of this C2. I would have liked to have seen the different back that you're going to see on the majority of the other panels as well. And so, therefore, this just seems like a very, very slight upgrade from last year's 48-inch C1. One area where the difference is quite large is the price, not surprisingly. $999 in the UK for the C1 and £400 more for the C2. In the US it's $1049 for the 48-inch C1 and it's $450 more if you want the C2, although you still have to wait because it hasn't been released just yet. This size was really well greeted last year. The 48 C1 did very well. And for gamers this year, we think the 42-inch is going to do even better. Many of you will have already heard that the 42 and 48-inch C2 OLEDs this year will be slightly dimmer than the 55 and above. Now, this isn't down to using a different panel or anything like that. It's purely down, as LG explained to AV Forums in an interview, that it's down to the pixel size and the restricted space around the 42-inch and the 48-inch chassis. The pixels just cannot physically get as bright as they can on the 55-inch and above. Now, what that difference will be is going to be interesting to see, and we'll certainly do a side-by-side test when we get our 55-inch in the studio. This year's C2 is even more colour accurate out of the box than last year's model was, and we was really impressed with the C1. In our pre-calibration tests, the C2 in SDR cinema mode was almost spot on. And surprisingly, out of all the different SDR settings, cinema was the most accurate. And when we ran this test last year on the C1, the ISF bright mode was the most accurate before, but that was a little bit far off this year. In HDR mode, we found that Cinema Home was also the most accurate, although again it was a little bit further off than in SDR mode. What we did find, however, is this is perfectly acceptable out of the box settings, and for the majority of people, it will be completely fine. Now, if you watch my side-by-side video with the C1, you'll notice and remember that I did say that the C2 is just slightly brighter, but it was very minimal. And obviously, because I had the smaller screen, it did appear sharper. However, what I would say is that I think with the new processor, what it's doing is a far better job at upscaling and giving sharper quality images. Now, if you look at this, just standard TV, this is just adverts running in the background, you can see how good this looks. The one thing that you definitely get is that warm, beautiful feeling of looking at an OLED TV, which you just don't really experience on any other type of TV. Now, there will be some people out there which will just say, oh, you're just a fan of OLED TVs, you're an OLED. Is there a fanboy club for OLEDs? I don't know. But I do have to say that every time I turn on an OLED TV, it doesn't actually matter whether it's my B10 that I've still got, my C1 from last year, or this, the C2. I still think to myself, just fleetingly, in the back of my mind, I bloody love these OLEDs. Now, one other thing that I did notice with this year's C2 is that there is far less black crushing. Now, this didn't happen that often on the C1, but just occasionally in very darker scenes you would get some black crushing. And the shadow detail does seem to be improved also. So this did deliver an incredible picture no matter what source I put through it, whether it be playing games or just watching normal TV. And the upscaling capability was definitely first class. I will obviously do a side-by-side once I do get the 55-inch version, and then we can really put it to its test to see whether it's that much better. Now, some of the new features on the C2 this year, which will be right across the range, are also very exciting. I was really excited about Picture-in-Picture or multi-view. This can be accessed via Game Optimizer or from the main settings screen and main menu system. However, what didn't go well was actually achieving any form of Picture-in-Picture. No matter what I chose, I just couldn't get it to work, and it was very limited in what options it actually worked with. It says that you can have it with screen share, but as soon as I connected my phone took over the whole screen. I have tried to make contact and reach out to LG support in the UK, but nobody's got back to me as of yet. So any of you guys have made any progress on this, please leave a comment and that will help out a number of people. But this is definitely a feature which I think a lot of people will certainly be pleased with, that it's coming, and it's something which has been missing for a few years now, so hopefully we'll get it back and it'll be working. One of the very few physical differences on this TV compared to last year was the IR blaster, and this is to help you control other items and use the always on feature. Now, the sensor at the front of the TV is a lot bigger than on previous years, and so therefore there's microphones built into the front of that, I assume, and you can now select always ready from either the menu system or from the initial startup. Now, this is where the TV will be listening for you at all times, and all you need to do to summon it is to say hi LG. The sensors can be then placed in front of your satellite cable boxes or something else, and then when you speak to it, it will then control them, and you can control the TV. Hi LG, change input to HDMI 4. Turn the volume to 10. To Northern Ireland, across the Irish Sea also. Change channel to BBC One HD. Go to PlayStation 5. I know many people may think that this is just a bit of a gimmick, but this does have a real world use, and for some people it will really help them get better control over their TV. And the fact that you can turn the TV off now and turn it on just by saying, hi LG, turn on the TV, that's got to be a good thing. Now, there is also a new setting within the menu system. It's family settings, and this is where you can set controls over the TV like usage limits. This can obviously be super helpful if you've got an unruly child that you need to make sure that they're only watching TV for a certain point in a day, or if you're just addicted to TV and you want to set some goals yourself. There's also a timer screen which will keep an eye on how long the TV's been active and also what has been used the most. If you wish, you can now set multiple profiles, which I think is a good thing, although I do feel that they've got this slightly wrong. I would have liked to have seen it much more like a Netflix style, although with this, from what I can understand, is that you do have to have your own LG account, and that makes it just a little bit more cumbersome, and probably people won't actually use it. Last year, LG introduced the Game Optimizer, and this was where you could go in and change different settings within the actual game itself. You didn't have to navigate to the main menu. This year, that option is still there, yet they have now added a couple of extra features. You've now got a sports mode, which is a separate sports setup where it will put it into, I guess, a faster response. And you've also got dark room mode, where you've got different levels. I think there's 2 levels of dark room, and this is where if you're in a completely dark room and you want to save on the brightness, then obviously you can tone it down. You can access that multi-view option that we showed you as well. So again, it's just little minor changes. So while we're talking about gaming on this TV is just as good as it was on the C1 last year, and I really do believe that the OLED technology, whether it be LG, Sony, whoever, I do believe that they've taken gaming to a new level, and you do really need to experience playing on an OLED to really get that feel. It is absolutely stunning. One thing that we will see this year is the introduction of QD OLEDs. Both Samsung and Sony will be bringing out QD OLEDs in 2022. And so it will be interesting just to see how well these TVs do against those newer models. So that is going to be a wait and see moment, I think. One thing that didn't make it into my head-to-head video, which I did, it was the ending of my race on Gran Turismo 7. The Gran Turismo game is incredible, but not as incredible as how I finished this race. Look at that for an ending. Exceptional. So we used our binaural stereo headphones in order to record the sound. It is 7.1 virtual. See what you think. Now, from our tests, we thought that it was louder than what it was on the C1, but not necessarily better. Certainly couldn't pick up any virtual surround sound, but then I wasn't really expecting to. Definitely recommend a soundbar or a 5.1 surround sound system. Okay, so screen sizes, we now go from 42-inch right up to 83-inch, but I do believe that the 48-inch model this year is probably the one which most people will avoid, because I don't think it's a big enough improvement over last year's C1, and they'll either go for the 42-inch or they'll go for the 55-inch, because you'll get that extra brightness, and that is why I definitely can't recommend this LG C2 48-inch. I just don't think it's a big enough improvement over the C1. So in summary guys, I do think that this is a great TV because it's so similar to last year's, and last year's was a great TV. But the price difference for the 48 C1 compared to the C2 is just too big to ignore, and so therefore I would definitely recommend the 48 C1 if you needed a smaller one, or consider this one the 42-inch, because that, although it's just a little bit cheaper, £100 cheaper or $100 cheaper, that obviously gives you that reduced size. Otherwise guys, I would hold out and wait for the 55-inch because that might be the sweet spot. But we'll take a look and give you our thoughts. It's a great TV, it's just whether that size has almost become a little bit redundant. Either buy the 42 or wait for the 55 is my initial impression. I'll take a look at the 55-inch and I'll let you know though guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that this has been helpful, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comments.